do we see today? And if we don't see that, 100% cost iconic, who else from the squad is going to step up to make up the difference? Will it be someone like Shuttle or another member? Let's find out. As we're going into the map now, and it is indeed Villa. XSET have the 2 outer bands. Disrupt have the 2 center bands. We're starting pretty meta-oriented here as Thatcher is going to get knocked out first.
Yeah, and I love that you brought that up with Iconic as well, because I think that Disrupt overall has been not exactly underwhelming, but the rest of the squad hasn't been performing as well as someone like, per se, Shuttle. I think that he's been the highlight player everyone's been talking about for Disrupt Gaming, currently a 1.25 on the season, 54 and 35 overall. And I think, honestly, this has been one of the best seasons that we've seen from Shuttle since way back in the day when he was on Rogue. It's nice to see him back, but I want the rest of the roster to have a resurgence and come around him, because I feel like up against a lot of these teams that are rebuilding and all of these things going on, that Disrupt can be a constant here if they find some equal or some ground to stand on. But either way, that's going to close out our band phase, folks, as the last one rolls in here for XSET. Thatcher, Ash as a ban for Disrupt, as well as Valkyrie, and the last one going to be Wamai, the most banned defender for the whole season.
So a good way to look at these bans, the 2 outside bans you see there are like your utility-focused bans trying to get rid of pesky utility that neither side wants to deal with. And then a center, more than anything, I think that's sort of like the comfort pick bans there, especially the Ashe. We've seen her banned out for a lot of utility reasons on top of the general kind of overpoweredness, as it's assumed to be in a lot of situations, of her primary gun. I guess it's probably a bit of a strong way to say it. It could be better spoken. But that's one reason. And then on top of that, Valkyrie as well, the utility proving very annoying to deal with, especially with IQ being relatively out of the meta right now. And as well, the fact that her operator kit is generally a pretty comfortable pick for most players that would generally pick up that role.
Absolutely. I think that that's the biggest thing with the Ashe ban is, like, not only do you have the comfortability factor, right? Because Ashe has been the most played offender since this game was released, in case anybody was wondering. She's always been at the top of the play pool, whether it be competitive or ranked. It doesn't matter. Ashe has always been at the top of the pile. When you remove an operator like that, especially with her changes within the last year, it limits you inside of that utility pool, and you have to go to, find other means in order to accomplish the same thing. And the biggest thing with Ashe is not only does she have 3 breaching charges now, but she also has 3 breaching rounds. That's a lot of utility to be able to get rid of shields and everything else that you're looking to try and get rid of on the defense before you get into those executes. So we're going to be seeing some frag grenades and some other things allocated to the offensive lineup to compensate for that.
And the Ashe ban is actually becoming more and more common, I believe. I think it was...
Absolutely.
I think it was...
I'll pull it up. I
think it was Dark Zero that tweeted about like how they're going to consistently keep banning it for reasons related to her utility and what she can provide. I'm trying to remember like the specific context of the tweet. I think it came from Skies, if I remember correctly. But, this isn't just like a thing that some teams are doing. This seems to be something that's starting to become more and more of a popular move. As we talk about more of the setup here, since we are 30 seconds into the actual round here now, things aren't looking too crazy for XSET's deployment over here on the inside of AVG. We've got the Goyo shields deployed on the extremities to stop the initial push. Between the 90 panel on the inside of Study, one of those walls was left soft to allow the gun vault player to fire through. And other than that, everything's pretty much as you'd expect it to be set up on this site.
Yeah, and Disrupt are just going for a master push here, so they're going to have to clear out most of this utility that are pushed out towards, like, bus door and stuff like that. And that's what Zofia will be here for, J9. So these first, more than likely, minute and a half just biting for that map control. They're trying to work their way into 90 and to start applying pressure to both sites at the same time. You really need to try and split their attention so they can't try and all hampered down on one area. But XSET have done a pretty bang-up job of being able to keep a hold of things like main stairs and keep an eye on Study as well.
Raiders going to continue to hold at the main stairs and bake down that time here as Disruptor not putting any pressure on that side of the map. Stokes had previously mentioned almost all the pressure is coming from the north side of the map. That's the master as well as the trophy and statuary side here that we're currently going to see pretty much all the deployment come from Disrupt. Now this will allow them to execute more than likely over towards 90, assuming that no one is there defending it, which we've got a good view of it, and we know for a fact that no one is there. So XSET is going to be focusing that defense primarily on the front stairs position. Also on the inside of Study, since Creator still maintains the position at main stairs, but looks like there might be a little bit of a pinch starting to be lined up here from Disrupt, as we do have 2 players on Repel directly outside of the Study window.
Disrupt simply looking for picks right now as they continue to wrap around this site. You can see mostly focused up at the top of red, but that's simply a basis right now for them to work off of an actual Study take here. Currently 3 Disrupt members in this area. Creator's going to get a good read on the situation, so XSET should be able to back off and play this out on timer here. Mark with a nice pick, and that'll start to open up the doors here. Oh no, a little bit of a misuse here, and that Selma is going to go off on the ground. Iconi's going to get yet another pick though, so it's not all doom and gloom as of right now, especially since they were able to take out Thomas with those smokes.
Yeah, thankfully, for the most part, you're going to leave one extra Selma, I think, as sort of an extra, just considering the fact that there's usually counter utility to deal with that, so that one wasted Selma is not going to be the end of the world. You see, they still get the wall open, still going to be able to make the plant attempt as they push their way through. Retro will actually get that down on the ground as well, so great start here to Disrupt, as the two remaining XSET players can't really do anything about this execute, it seems. Butters and Drip, the only one that remain in this fight. Now Drip's going to be able to find one response against Retro, but that's the only one they've been able to vie for, and that's just because of the gun vault pressure they have. Slowly, though, it is allowing them back out onto the site, but that is partially by the design of Disrupt, as they're now well into their post-plant setup. Mark with the pickup and the follow-up to shut things down for Disrupt as they take the first round.
Yeah, pretty poor round there for XSET, just simply giving away the one-on-one engagements and dying every single step of the way. Not too much more insight into that, granted, mainly because we didn't really get to see the engagements, but Thomas definitely overswinging there. That's the last person you want to die inside of an engagement like that, is your smoke player, especially when the offense is starting to wrap around that site and applies pressure and attempting to put down plants and things along those lines. So, difficult round for XSET, but doesn't mean that they can't reset, and it looks like they're meaning to do that right now, as they're going to immediately go away from AVG and start things off in trophy statuary.
Probably a good choice, considering how, honestly, one-sided the round eventually boiled itself down to be there for Disrupt. So XSET going to see if they have better luck on a different site. Once again, here, looking at the specific operator lineup, no reason to suggest anything different overall going to be happening here. So let's talk more about what went down in the previous round. Not a lot of aggression coming out from XSET, if we're being honest about it. Disrupt taking it very slowly, clearing out only the specific areas of the map that they absolutely needed to, starting from this part of the map right here, over inside of Trophy and Statuary. Like I said, pretty much no resistance in that side of the map from XSET, so Disrupt were allowed to get to the connecting doorway at the top of Red Stairs pretty much for free, and from that point forward, it was just a matter of setting up the players and study. Also, again, only having, I believe it was Butters or Creators sitting back on the main staircase, and they weren't even actually really do anything about the study push. So Disrupt had their way with the site setup and was allowed to go through their full execution without really any interruption there. And as soon as they picked up the entries, it was nearly an unwinnable round for them.
Yeah, that's really what sealed the deal there. Like, XSET could try and battle back, especially with like what you were talking about with Creators on main stairs, but he wasn't even cognizant to the situation at all. Everyone was already inside. They had the cross established from the study window as well. That's a losing battle for him, and that's exactly why XSET were not able to battle out of that situation. Just too many guns, excuse me, for Disrupt up, and not enough to try and battle back. But this round could be different, as we're already 30 seconds into round 2. Not too much of a change up from either side. Still going to be running the Saria gates here for XSET, as Thomas is on an extended hold all the way over at Bookshelf.
Probably going to continue to stay here even after getting spotted out by the drone. Does hold a relatively safe position until there is also going to be main stairs pressure. That will more than likely be the siren call for him to fall back and play either deeper in the site or outright fall back to his team's own site that they're actually playing into, since obviously game's not the active site inside of round 2 here. XSET continuing to wait out with much more passive pressure, although aggressive positions overall on the inside of AVG, but not able to line up any early success from these positions as Disrupt begin that slow process of clearing things out for pretty much the opposite approach to what they did in the previous round, just a south to north clear this time. But even that may not be the definitive strat here. Only a few players committing to this. I believe similarly to the previous round, we're also going to have one or two stay on the outside, continue to put pressure in. But here's the issue. Thomas never either droned out or fully cleared on the inside of bars, so he's allowed to get a freebie against Mark that is not going to get responded to for quite some time here by the looks of things.
Yeah, that's a huge mistake here for Disrupt. They have all of the utility in the world to clear that out, including Mark with a hologram, and they just completely go about or circumnavigate practically. Also, we're gonna have Thomas hop outside. He's now gonna get picked, so it's a 4v4. XSET just trying to push the envelope a little too much there, especially after they were able to get that freebie, but don't know exactly if Thomas would have been able to get out of that situation. 90, yes, he could have went back towards main, but it seemed like he had another plan instead. That's gonna get us down into our last minute though, which is still a 4v4. Drip was able to make it back to site. Thomas not so lucky, as we saw him fly out of that 90 window.
Yeah, Thomas choosing violence instead of the slow bleed out right there. So he just literally leaps out the window and into a gunfight. As Stokes had mentioned, though, already wasted a lot of time and didn't really have a safe option to evacuate from that position and try to get back to the site anyway. So he's going to go down in an even trade, although, as we said, took quite some time to get him down. Still, that leaves us into a 4v4, however, with only 20 seconds left, and the large majority of the on-site player base for XSET barely being touched here. Disrupt are going to have a lot of work to do in only 13 seconds to get it done. Out comes the utility. Filthy prepared to stop it, but no, can't get any kills. It's actually XSET that find another pickup, though, as Butters gets one from himself. Shuttle trades onto Filthy in the site, but everybody else moving outside of this doorway is falling quickly, except the man that needs to pick up the kills. It's Shuttle and Iconic that clean things up and give Disrupt a second round that I had no idea they'd even be able to pick up, considering what their execute looked like.
Yeah, very sloppy execute, very sloppy clear, and like I kind of feel like Kicks right now. I'm like, well, it was kind of bad, but they still won. So like the thing is that XSET moved back to site, and again, it comes down to these one-on-one engagements that Disrupt are able to find. They put XSET into just what seems like a feeding frenzy. No one's really thinking about the engagements that they're taking. You know, a spray going wide from Filthy, not able to actually get the frags that were so very vital to that situation. And Disrupt doing what feels like the bare minimum there. You know, break the line of sight with the smoke and then try and throw a plant down inside of concrete. That doesn't really seem like Disrupt did a whole lot there to force that onto XSET. It was like we had 3 people inside of Master all holding the same door. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's hard to be like, yes, Disrupt, you did so good, especially when Mark just walked past bar door and Thomas literally just walked up behind him and shot him in the back of the head. So I feel like both of these squads need to just get inside their bag, a little bit of a breather inside of this prep phase, talk about some things, and then reinsert into the match, because there's a lot of things that are pretty big mistakes that are happening right now.
We're going to be going to a pretty similar setup in AVG for XSET as they reattempt this site for a second time. Same single panel going to get left unreinforced here, as well as I believe the same rotate positions and everything else being set up. So at the end of that last round, unfortunately, the rotations from XSET to try and stop the plant at that null timer scenario just a little bit too disorganized, allowing for Iconic to have the plant support and to shut down those final 2 players that were trying to rotate their way in. Really giving props to Iconic there for performing well under the pressure. He was one of the key players we talked about needing to perform in this fashion in this matchup for Disrupt UL, and so far he is doing that, especially at the end of round 2 there, and is part of the reason why Disrupt currently have an unchallenged lead. Time to see, though, if XSET have learned from the issues that surfaced inside of their first round and how they're going to be able to adjust.
Yeah, it's in XSET's court now to attempt to rep the set as much as they possibly can. Obviously, it could change at any moment in time, but we need some sort of starting point. We need them to at least get on the board. Looks like they will be adjusting some utility around to different locations. Butter's going to move a Moot Jammer here that's still going to be able to hold on to that single panel, I do believe. I'll have to see if they're able to get rid of that a little later on. As of right now, this is going to be the simple beginnings of any R6 round. Get that good intel, lock down those flanks, and start to prep for your execute.
Just a little bit of a housekeeping note there, as we have to send Shuttle outside real quick to retrieve the case, but just a couple seconds of wasted time.
Might be a little important, I don't know.
Yeah, might need that. But either way, Disruptor once again prepared to go for that north to south execute here. You can see they're doing it in pretty much the same exact fashion they did on the previous round. Now, XSET have to be ready for this, considering it's so identical here. Already the top red pressure falling to Disrupt. In a moment, we're going to see Disrupt move in to try to take the study control. They are droning out main stairs, I believe, to figure out Drip's position here, and now they're moving in. So they're going to be following up behind that drone. There's the ping to allow Iconic to move through. A sloppy fight, but he gets the job done anyway, dropping Drip and once again opening up the second side of this push, and the needed one for Disrupt to get in relatively uncontested fashion. Now they just have to worry about the actual games push to the inside, and as we're seeing, that's going pretty well here. Butters, the only one that's able to respond to the onslaught coming in from Disrupt. He's going to try to get more off the shoddy, and he just barely gets it, downing Iconic at sub 25 HP. This goes to a 2v3 now, with Butters 1 bullet away from going down, and Craters, the only other player that can survive a gunfight.
Well, Butters does have a nitro cell as well, so he'll have stop for the plant inside of the dying moments here, but still a lot of time considering. Oh my God, Butters with a double kill with the nitro cell we were just talking about out of thin air. It comes from nowhere. He kills 2, Retro into a 1-on-2 situation. 20 seconds remain. Butters and Creators, obviously Butters still very weak, but that SMG-11 can definitely still win a gunfight. Retro trying to create some noise with the Selma charge that'll allow him to move forward, but if there's any Banshee still up, this is free intel for them. Butter's gonna get a good sight line, but it's Creators to take down Retro and get XSET on the board.
What a hold from Butters on the inside of the bar position. And of course, the double kill Nitro Cell to top it all off there. Doesn't end up getting the ace, but didn't even really need to. His contribution from the inside of the site there, unmatched, and was the only thing that was stopping the push from Disrupt. If he goes down in just this first 1v1 there, that is easily another round for Disrupt, but because of the efforts from him, it's turned around completely in the other direction. We have another completely unexpected round win as well. XSET stealing that one right out of Disrupt's hands and putting themselves on the board at 1-2.
Yeah, things that shouldn't happen, that one right there. That's it. Disrupt do a very good job of gathering map control. They did have a pretty risky one-on-one with Iconic just pushing into the top of main, obviously supported by a drone, but didn't really have a cross from like the study window or anything like that to possibly assist if that did go awry. But either way, they're still able to get the pick and translate that into an execute. But the issue is that XSET seemingly never slowed down inside of the aggression. This is something that I've always noticed, especially with Drip's teams, is that there's a lot of individualism when it comes down to it. Everyone's a playmaker, and they will take their opportunities as they come, and that's what feels like happened there, especially for Butters. Butters hasn't had the greatest season so far. In fact, the lowest rated XSET player on the entire squad, and this 5-2-2 is looking damn good next to his name.
With a good game being set up for him off of just a 4K in the previous round as well. We'll see what else him and the rest of XSET going to be able to put up on the board. Their second reattempt for the trophy and statuary hold coming in right now. Disrupt spawned out on the table here. We do have some aggressive roaming still in play for XSET, as you might expect on this site, since it was in play previously. Thomas is extended out by the first floor, or excuse me, by the front staircase here, as he's going to play into that, and he's not the only one. It looks like Creators also positioned forward here, looking to fend off some aggression if it works its way into study. Drip also contributing to this, but already taking some heat there as he's down to a little over 50 HP, trying to fight off against a repelled player on the 90 window.
XSET standing strong right now for Aviator Games Control, trying to delay Disrupt as much as possible. But as we've seen so far throughout this series, at least for the first 3 rounds, Disrupt are quite lethal in these early engagements, often getting 2 to 3 picks before XSET are able to try and battle back. And that's not going to change up at all. Mark's going to get some good intel, swings up red, and removes the head of Creators.
Unlucky for Creators, they're getting caught in the timing, trying to detonate his Nitro Cell, and ultimately not able to get his gun out in time.
Hey, Belly, remember what we were talking about, Mark? I mean, come on, man. Come on, 7-0-2, baby.
Mark with his second kill on the round right there. All these just from that art studio entry as well. And look at the cutoff against Drip. 2 different players, one on an outsider repel. J9O inside the building, hunting him down. Knocks out yet another member of this defense. It's down to Butters and Filthy. Top fragger in Butters, but only seeing that fragging prowess come out in the last round. We need to see if it can be repeated yet again here in round 4 against what is a 2v5 now in the favor of Disrupt.
And this is the crappy thing, is this is the situation that you actively try and avoid if you're the defense. What went wrong here is that Disrupt are extended out, obviously, over towards AVG and have quite a few members there to try and hold things down. But as Disrupt are able to make these players tumble, they keep getting these picks and, you know, apply more and more pressure to them. They're not really backing off, especially in the case of Thomas here. He's obviously locked out. Disrupt already has pressure on 90 window and a couple of different avenues that he no longer has access or control over. So XSET simply try to die rotating back to site or taking these engagements because the crosses are just too strong. Disrupt have done such a good job on clearing the roam and flushing out these roamers, either killing them or able to push them into another angle. But Butters with a big frag here. Filthy trying to get aggressive on the red stairs. Retro gets one, J9 with the other, and Disrupt Gaming lead off pick for the third time, excuse me, here, and their 3rd round.
Honestly, props to XSET for the way they tried to handle things in the 2v5 there. I really like the potential pinch they were trying to work towards that top red stairs position. Just didn't, obviously, at a 2v5, of course, didn't really have the manpower in order to make that work, although it definitely seemed like they were starting to control the situation and could have definitely leveraged that into more frags, had some very minute details gone differently inside of that gunfight, but that's nitpicking at its finest right there. So moving on from that, the real winner of that round is Disrupt's early roam clear over towards the AVG side of the map. The way they were able to isolate out, specifically Thomas, if I remember it correctly, deeper in the site, was very well done. And that on top of how they handled the rest of the players trying to get aggressive, trying to get in the faces of Disrupt early on, led to another round where Disrupt were basically set to win it before we were even at 130.
I'm so happy you pointed that out as well, because the roam clear there really is what won Disrupt that round. Yeah. It was just so unbelievably nasty, especially with the push in from Mark, able to get multiple kills. And the thing is that hold is okay, John, The problem is that they didn't support it at all with any other pieces of utility, minus one reinforcement for drip into study. Like, that's it. So, like, they have the entire wall ripped open on the back end for bar and all this other stuff. So not only can the 90 window now see into, bar, so part of that's not even playable. But if anybody pushes up inside of, like, bookshelf or anything, they're going to see you if you're, like, trying to play the back corner or things along those lines. It's just very risky, the amount of angles that are open there. And as we see, that's what happens when things go terribly wrong with that kind of setup. So we'll see if XSET tries to make some adjustments here as we head to Dining Room Kitchen for the very first time.
Some big improvements for me personally already that I'm seeing here in Disrupt's gameplay, comparing it to their last match they did over on Coastline. There was a lot of issues there where they were pushing players too far out, getting too aggressive. This is for Disrupt we're talking about here. Players oftentimes kind of putting themselves off on an island and then not being fully aware of the situation, getting themselves picked for free, allowing for their opponents in that match to really push ahead. Not seeing that as much here. In fact, I'm seeing the opposite. I'm seeing a lot of very coordinated play for Disrupt. Players are set up to trade off of each other instead of being off on that lonesome island as they were often so the case back on that Coastline game. And that's leading to a much improved performance here. As I said, already like 2 to 3 rounds where Disrupt are in a position to win as far as I'm concerned, even though we're already like halfway through the round. But at the same time, XSET is bringing out some star performances, notably the one from Butters on the round they were able to pick up in order to diminish some of that potential round-winning setup from Disrupt there. So if we continue to see that, Disrupt may not be able to stay on this winning streak for as long as they've been continuing it here.
Well, it all depends on that lead-off pick. We know XSET is usually the ones to try and find that, as we've seen time and time again inside of their matches. This one, not so much. Disrupt so far 3 opening kills and XSET with a singular one, and it wasn't even on the round that they ended up winning. It was all down to that clutch inside of round 3 where we're able to see that. But 2 more rounds to go here for XSET before they switch sides, but obviously Villa, usually a more defensive-sided map, so Disrupt well within their right to take this when the sides switch. XSET desperately needing these last 2 rounds, and it starts here inside of Kitchen. Pretty usual setup here. Thomas with the Pulse, Castle Barricades upstairs, as well as a Mira, actually, inside of Astronomy. One that we don't get to see too often, but definitely quite the interesting setup, especially given the vision into Trophy. But here's the main issue with that. The Castle Barricade gets ripped down for Astronomy, and now Drip either vacates the area or holds onto a Mira and decides if he's going to get shot in the back. And we can already see that Drip has moved away from the entire area already. So, Disrupt now going to have some control over the top floor, but we'll have to see what they're able to do with it.
A little bit of a different execute here for Disrupt. A longer checklist specifically to manage before they can potentially go onto the site and execute. And at the same time, the aggression for XSET's still out and about across the map in a very, very big way, as you guys are already seeing upstairs here. Creators with a lineup to actually take out a player on the inside of Trophy, but they trade each other as well right there. J9 and Creators both knocking each other out, so neither team yields a serious advantage here. Both will just lose a single player at the exact same time. Now, aside from that,
I was going to say, I don't know who to write down as opening kill. I don't know.
I guess no one gets it this round. We're going to start up on the kill feed first. I think technically it would go to that person from a statistical perspective.
We'll have to ask CGG and be like, hey, what do I write down in my notes for that?
Spencer handle those situations.
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder if that's the first time that's happened, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea, but this fight right here, very big deal for Filthy as he's trying to combat the vertical angle here from Sledge. Hops down off of the tarp box, able to get away with that and get back into sight. But there's a lot of verticality going on. Selma charge in. Filthy actually moving forward inside of Laundry. Got the M590 out, and this thing absolutely turns and burns when used properly. He takes down Retro. That's going to be the ace gone, and it's down into a 3v3.
Even fight once again, but just that quickly it goes into Disrupt's favor. Shuttle with an important pickup against Butters. Thomas caught out in the open at Red Hole. This is where the spread clear from Disrupt upstairs really comes back to bite XSET, because they can't play those open and aggressive positions. There's too much map control already fallen to the attackers. And as you see there, just like that, XSET try to get aggressive. Their defensive setup in the site falls to pieces, and Disrupt get themselves yet another round.
XSET had some good info there, but their main issue is that the Selma charge starts going off inside of Laundry, and all of XSET begins moving because they think Disrupt are already starting the execute. People are starting to grab their angles and everything else. We see Thomas push out into Red Hall or the bottom of Red Stairs, and all these other things all happen at the same time, but Disrupt weren't exactly truly ready to push in and put a plant down yet. They were going to do that in the dying moments. Like for instance, we see Shuttle starting to push down Red Hall. He picks up Thomas. There's only 11 seconds left on the clock. Thomas is trying to make a rotate to Tarps to more than likely try and flank somebody or kill somebody that's trying to plant on the other side of Tetris, but none of that can happen because Disrupt are still holding on to the space all around the site because they haven't actually made the execute onto the actual site yet. So an oversight here from XSET that ends up losing them the round that they already looked like they weren't exactly going to get away with.
All right, guys. Well, XSET's last chance to make an impact is going to fall on the site. They've already attempted twice, lost once outright due to a very, very strong execute from Disrupt, and won by XSET once, so far the only site they've been able to win, but realistically only off of the heroics from Butters playing behind the bar position. Now, that's not to say that someone else couldn't have stepped up if the need arose for it, but up until that point where Butters activated himself back in round 2, it was looking very, very much like a Disrupt round, so we'll have to see if XSET are going to be able to finally get us a convincing win against them to set up a 2-4, or if Disrupt will run the gauntlet here, go up to a 5-1 scoreline. And as Stokes mentioned, with generally this map being preferred to be defender-sided, possibly set up Disrupt for an early victory here.
Yeah, we'll have to see how this round goes for XSET, but yeah, that's the biggest problem that they're faced with right now. The other one being that, yes, Butters is finally having a really good game, but he also has 50% of their kills. So that's kind of problematic, as we've talked about what seemingly seems to be all day today. You know, having only 1 or 2 people getting all of your frags, not necessarily the best thing in the world. As Filthy's traded out for Mark here. Thank you to Creators for being the insurance on that situation, as he'll equalize and immediately leave the premises. You don't want to stick around if, you know, your hands are on the murder weapon.
We've got J9O still trying to figure out exactly what went wrong there, looking at Mark's down corpse, and more importantly, trying to see if anyone from XSET still in this area, still looking to cause
okay,
problems.
hold on. Why is Mark dead? Why is Ying the first one in when
question.
she's the execute utility? What is going on right now?
Ying was the first person to walk into Astro. That's a simple answer, and there's a lot. That shouldn't happen. But Thomas, trying to play aggressive behind the Goyo shit. It looks like he stuck around inside of the flames for a second or two longer than he needed to. That or the terrain just didn't let him get out as quickly as he would have liked. But either way, Thomas nearly killed by his own team's utility there, with one of Disrupt's members just throwing the breaching charge onto the doorway to quickly take care of that.
Yeah, Thomas attempting to be the new lead singer for Dragon Force isn't able to make it through the fire and flames, unluckily enough. Will be able to get a drone for his troubles, though, and continues to play out his life. Still plenty of time on the board for Disrupt to get something done here, but exactly what is the game plan? As of right now, we are at least going to get Retro, as well as another member here, believing that it's Iconic over on the study side. They're just going to be handling the main walls to actually apply some pressure into this site. They need to start getting some line of sight open here and making these defenders actually worry about the situation. That's the biggest deal right now, is that there's nothing open wall-wise, and no new lines of sight means that most of the defense can rotate around. But as we actually get a new view in here, it appears that there is actually a new set open. It's going to be the study wall pointing in towards the north, so they'll have a nice little oversight of what's going on inside of the vault.
Butters still has, as well as Thomas, both still have their cover walls to play off of, though, because the bar walls were not taken down. So they're still going to be in pretty comfortable positions. Remember, these were the power players that changed the course of the last defense here and allowed XSET to win it outright. So allowing them to still stay in play there is going to be quite dangerous as we see the potential deployment of the diffuser going down now. It's going to get predictably interrupted by a nitro from Butters, and I believe they might have one more. Never mind, they don't. So this next one, not going to be so easy to stop. They've got the cross lines to attempt to punish players, but the smokes blocking the repelled player here. XSET are holding on in the way that they need to, as Shuttle remains the last player standing. He'll also get taken down by Butters, giving XSET their second round at the end of the half.
Well, a little bit of a scary round there. I honestly, I can't even say that. That round right there was actually quite easy for XSET when it came down to it. Disrupt not truly having anything go in their way, especially with the smokes there. That's actually what limited them on getting that plant down. Yes, the nitro cell came through and actually ended up taking out the initial planter, but the smoke actually blocked the line of sight that they opened for Vault, and we actually ended up seeing one of the XSET members move forward, the Malusi, in fact, and take down the next planter because the offensive smoke was in the way of his vision. So, you know, Disrupt just not properly checking the boxes and actually ended up getting in each other's way, loses them that round. But the good news is that's only 2 rounds to XSET on their defenses. Should be an absolute breeze if these defenses are played out correctly, as Disrupt have split 4-2 at the half.
take a look at the opening round defense here from Disrupt. Since we are going to be on trophy statuary, as we discussed with the XSET defense, there generally has not been a lot of innovation in the site setup here in the past couple of months. So generally speaking, I expect this to be set up in the same way as we've seen in the past. You've got the Cade for active defense on the most important wall inside of this site. You've also got the Pulse being played by Mark there. It's going to provide some great intel about the progress of the clear, especially when it comes to downstairs intel. That, of course, depends on where Mark is specifically going to play that Pulse, as it does vary from time to time. So we'll follow up on that in a moment. But aside from that, it's business as usual here.
It's business as usual, but there is one thing that is a little out of the ordinary in comparison to everything else. Well, Iconic actually walking right next to the single panel that's open inside a laundry.
Ooh.
Yeah, so this is a little bit of a new fold here for the defense. They've also opened up the supporting angles to be able to cover tarps from upstairs. So Retro's life more than likely quite important. But this is all down to how XSET are going to attempt to clear this, obviously. But given that this is what I initially thought was kitchen, but is this actually, no, this is actually upstairs. So they're playing this entire setup down low for not only nitro cells, but also for the Pulse in general. So this is actually quite a unique setup here from Disrupt.
This is very similar to how we see like the split site played, I think, to a certain extent, back on Consulate. How teams like to play that one by essentially stacking nitro cells and allowing them a greater capability to play down below because of the general ease of access you have to deny plants with those nitro cells and the obviously added difficulty that comes with trying to clear out that downstairs or basement hold on the other map. The same principle should generally apply to the first floor hold here, although I do think it's going to be a little bit easier to clear out than the basement on that split take. So we'll see, as Stokes was mentioning, how XSET are going to choose to handle this once they're extra drone phase has been completed here and they fully realize what the setup looks like for Disrupt.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's basically another drone phase for them because this is a lot of things, lots of moving parts that XSET have to deal with, but we'll see if they go more surgical or if it's a hammer method. As for Disrupt, though, still lying in wait down low with these nitro cells, and the beauty of this entire situation for them is they've been able to use Mark to his fullest potential. Look at all of this intel coming in for them, and they'll more than likely be able to, whether it be a nitro cell kill or from sight, get the lead off pick depending on how this goes. Still reading things out with the cardiac sensor down low. XSET hasn't been able to find a single frag. They've currently rotated a player being Butters into the bathroom while Thomas is attempting to handle down low by himself.
Being known as quite the aggressive team, XSET struggling to find any of that aggression and more importantly make impact upon it on the outset of round number 7. As Stokes mentioned, 2 minutes already gone from the clock, barely any control going by the way of XSET save for the initial walk-in, as well as that master bedroom, which isn't really being contested by Disrupt anyway. Mark finally going to take some heat, though, as he's forced to the back of Bicycle, expecting a rotate to come towards his window. Of relative safety on the inside of Bicycle. Does not look like XSET have too much of an appetite for fragging him immediately, but he will remain stuck on the inside. J90 finds the first kill at 25 seconds here. Plan attempt starting to roll in. Craters with an opportunity as he finds a kill that lets him in, as does Butters. But now those nitro cells will start to roll out and diminish the remaining count for XSET all the way to the point where they've got one player left standing. J90 will handle that relatively quickly, and another round will go up on the board for Disrupt.
Blue, they got to make a decision. They got to make a decision. XSET gets all of this intel on what's going on around the map, so much so that they actually pushed Thomas downstairs by his lonesome to handle that setup. But as we all saw, that's not a setup that you can handle by yourself. That's something that you're going to have the team come together and either clear that or try and go for a complete top push and hold the flank, and also realize that nitro cells are going to be in play. Instead, XSET completely go around all of that, try to do the site hit, and get blown sky high on every single step of the way. Disrupt truly only losing one member that I was able to see. It was that frag that we saw inside of Trophy, but everything else just going right to Disrupt, whether it be through gunfights or through nitro cells from down low. I mean, Disrupt just simply had too much stop there with Mark in play, and XSET did zero to affect that situation.
All right, so coming down to the wire here for XSET is potentially going to reach their wits' end sooner rather than later on how they can potentially handle the setups from Disrupt. Instead of going directly over towards AVG, a site that we've seen play to death on this map, we're actually going to see Disrupt go down towards the kitchen and dining room hold here too. The less common, but more similar in terms of its setup is, well, simply put, it's directly below the site we just witnessed them defending. So a lot of the same things can be employed. Some slight differences obviously going to come out. The Aruni gates, I believe, are going to be at slightly different positions, and obviously you'll have way more reinforcements on the downstairs hold, but the emphasis is going to be be the same. Extended play on the upstairs position to try and block XSET from opening up a constant barrage of top-down angles on the site. Eventually, though, they'll have to give that pressure up, disrupt this as we're talking about now, and defend the core site itself. But hopefully, they'll have wasted enough time by that point to where XSET is not going to be able to properly set up or gather intel in their own right, forcing them into the positions of disrupt and allowing them to close out similarly to how they did on the previous round.
Okay, so Shuttle doing his own thing down low in living room. J9 up top playing the astronomy stairs along with Iconic. They have the entire triple wall reinforced inside of astronomy, as well as all three of the Saria gates dedicated to not only the doors inside of Split, but also the Astro window. So this seems to be a somewhat of a bunker setup to hold things down as long as possible up top inside of astronomy. And you can see the amount of XSET members that are currently worried about what's going on in here. They really want some sort of insight, and they'll get some off of that hologram. They see Iconic here. Not too good of a read on J9 situation, though, so he could still be a supporting member of this cast. They will get a concussion off on him, though, so they'll realize that there is some presence and more things to worry about.
You can see here, Iconic not going to be alone in his hold, and this gives him the freedom to watch the rotate. Does get a little distracted by the drone there, and he's going to have to panic move after that. The drone will spot him again, and Iconic's decided he's had enough of this position here. Way too much info going over to his attackers, way too much capability for them to potentially swing through and refrag him, as we're going to see right there. The good news is, though, is this time Disrupt are able to line up an immediate refrag off of a good Nitro cell there. Yes, Iconic is lost, but remember, he was kind of the sacrificial lamb in this situation, having the pressure on him so early, had to rotate down. There was a good chance he'd get caught, but at a minimum, Disrupt made sure that he got traded there, which is what's more important, as he also wasted 2 minutes off the clock.
Yeah, but here's the issue right now. Yes, Disrupt might still have Mark alive and be able to use the cardiac sensor as to know where XSET currently is, but looking at their secondary utility, Mark also has the only stop for them if XSET is able to get this execute to go off, and that could prove to be problematic. We'll have to see how this ends up going, but Disrupt not out of the hot seat just yet, but also XSET need this to go off flawlessly. This top pressure, especially around this Tetris area, needs to be handled so very well and so delicately.
Oh, Drip nearly getting caught there on a tricky angle as he tries to peek inside of Laundry. I think taking a little bit of team damage there, too, as he runs past the spray from Filthy. Oh, Mark with a beautiful shot. The re-peeks that tricky angle, this time finding a head to hunt. Now, too, as he takes down Drip as well. He's going to get hyper-aggressive here. He's expecting the drop play. What a read, but no! Thomas gets the better of it regardless, bringing us into a 2v3.
That's not supposed to happen. Thomas drops the hatch. He's going to get another one for his troubles as well. J9 from downrange, able to trade it out. Thomas trying to get aggressive. Knows one's around the bomb chassis, but J9 there to be the vacuum to suck up the rest of this round for Disrupt. Some strong stuff from them, but you have to give it to Mark inside of that one. His Nitro cell gets taken away from him. He's got the worst gun in the game, and he's able to get 2 frags inside of Laundry. Fantastic so far from Disrupt as XSET continue to not be able to hit the mark when it's so necessary.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, well, that pushes us to potentially our ultimate round inside of this matchup here. Disrupt once again with those great late round angles, and more importantly, the cutoffs there. Things looking a little bit dodgy after the drop play is successful to get the remaining members of XSET towards the inside, as well as the extra kill on top of that. But like I said, those long-range cutoffs from the very edge or the bottom of the Astro stairs just outside of that site, as well as deep in the kitchen, were too strong there and allowed for a quick closeout on what was starting to become a little bit of a scary situation in those last couple of seconds as the XSET were working their way into the site. It's been a common theme here. Disrupt have had the same sorts of setups when it came to their roam clear, specifically when attacking the trophy and statuary sites just a couple rounds back on their own attack, clearing out the extended roam game from XSET on the inside of AVG. So some really good stuff coming out from Disrupt on the team setups today, and it's paying off in huge dividends here at a 6-2 scoreline, potentially 7-2 if they can close out on this one final round.
Yeah, it's definitely the team play that is separating these two right now. You have to feel bad for XSET because it seems like every time they do have a good situation to, move forward with a very team-based play, it's just a multi-frag for Disrupt that ends up coming through. We've seen some play from XSET that's worked out for them, but a lot of the things that they've done inside of, especially those 2 rounds that they were able to, actually procure, it was just a lot of individualism. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but when it comes down to the differences in squads inside of a competitive FPS, it's going to be the team that has the stronger team play over the team that has the strong individualism.
Especially in Siege, right? I think it's,
well, yeah, I mean, obviously, like, there's some games, like, if we're going to go play COD, Like, and I drop a 40 bomb on Dom. You know what I mean? Like, that's a whole different ball game. But this game, because of the utility, because of crossfires and everything else that you hear us talk about all the time, that's why team play is so very important. You cannot be a one-man army inside of Rainbow Six. Rampy tried it earlier today, and where did that get at SSG?
Trigger some more people with that statement.
I mean, hey, I'm just saying, you can't be a one-man army inside of this game. It's very, very difficult to actually be able to do it.
It's okay. Parker was being more controversial earlier, so I think you're still safe on the the Twitter ire department, if you want to. Or Reddit ire, I guess, has been more relevant recently. But
dude, I report to no one.
All right, so XSET working their way in from study, opening up the bar wall, a little bit different than how Disrupt took it, as they generally try to take out the vault-sided walls there, so slightly different angle is going to be set up for XSET. This does obviously disallow that comfortability factor for the members of Disrupt that are playing in the bar, but it kind of reignites it for those inside of gun vaults. So different choice, different strokes for different folks, as we're going to see.
God, I love you.
What a movie, God.
Oh, I thought you were moving on. Okay, either way. Anyways, halfway through the round now. I was just trying to have a good time, but apparently, you know, John, either way. Minute and 20 left for Disrupt. That leadoff pick on Retro, obviously going to be a big deal. That's the smokes off the board. Those toxic babes usually able to stop the offense from executing when they initially want to. But since he's off the board now, it's down to the gunfights that Disrupt are able to try and find for themselves. Nice crosses being set up. Also, Iconic still down low. Granted, he's not going to have a nitro cell, and it seems like he's being pressured right now by two members of XSET who are trying to clear out library. I said it right. Did you see that? That's crazy.
Yeah, library. Yeah.
Hey, you guys should be proud of me. If I don't get positive tweets from that, you guys suck. You guys never say anything positive when I do stuff right. I want some positive love today. That's what I want. I demand it.
He has an accent. How dare you?
I'm from the Midwest, man. My grandmother says "warsh." Imagine that. Imagine that growing up. All right.
Well, we got
Thomas.
Thomas picking up a kill here. Iconic with such a powerful position, though, but he's unable to maintain it. Traded out by Creators instantly. Jane, I know, has a chance to shut this down, though, and there's the start of it. Down from a 1v3 into a 1v2 is Thomas and Filthy, the last two now standing. Third plant attempt going to go down onto the ground, and this one should go off without a hitch here. Jane, I know's position also realized by the player on main stairs, but it doesn't matter. Filthy so quick on the trade, though, kills the clutch potential and secures the round for XSET, but just barely, as it's brought down from a 1v4 to a 1v1.
Oh, if he attempts to plant even half a second later, that round could be completely different. The timing there for XSET, impeccable on how that plant gets off, and they're able to survive because of it. But they're not out of the woods just yet. And in fact, the path has just begun. That's the first round, and they need 3 more in order to push Disrupt to overtime. But the good news is they're still in this. They're not going to have to change up too much. DG are immediately going to move the goalpost. We're headed to Trophy Statuary for a more based defense here.
So close for Disrupt to close it out there. I doubt they're worried about their current position inside of the matchup, given how they nearly clutched that one out and still have 3 more opportunities to do so. But XSET definitely going to revel in the victory they just got for themselves, even with the somewhat precarious circumstances through which they closed it out. Up until that clutch moment, they were looking very, very strong indeed with their clear. And now it's time to see if once again they've learned their lesson from a previously lost site. This previous play from Disrupt's defense already netting them another round when they took this. And once again, it looks like a similar setup is going to broil out as we've got those 3 nitro cells coming into the fold yet again. And Mark on the pulse, more than likely going to be playing from inside of the kitchen for a second time also.
Yeah, Mark has been just so dominant so far on defense with this pulse play. I believe that he's had it on every single one of these sides. I don't believe I've seen him switch off. He might have switched off on AVG, but not necessarily coming back to my memory at this moment in time. But either way, the pulse play from him has been immaculate. He's been able to get all of the intel when it comes down to what the offense is doing. And on top of that, found quite a few frags with that ump. Remember the highlight play that he had playing around Tetris inside of Kitchen. And given that and what we've seen so far from them, these next 3 rounds are going to be quite the tall task for XSET, especially since obviously no IQ in play. It's difficult to work her in nowadays. They're going to have to do this through the traditional means of droning, but they do still have Thomas to use with this hologram, and I want to see if they can utilize this just a touch better to try and influence what they do inside of the later round.
XSET continuing to maintain their strong early round position, but to be fair, it is going to be gifted over to them for the most part, with members of Disrupt choosing to play that close to the site hold. as well as the downstairs position towards kitchen. No roam game going to be deployed over towards the AVG side of the map whatsoever. So XSET is going to be able to take this part of the map pretty much for free. This is a interesting little counter angle to go up, I believe, towards the connector also, if anybody tries to push in from there. And that'll be
it's for bench door. That's
bench
what it's
door.
for.
Yeah. So we'll be able to punish anybody working their way in from that position. But like I was talking about, we're still a couple minutes away from that. You can see just on the silhouettes right now, we've got like 2 to 3 people on drones on XSET. So not a whole lot happening in the combat portion of this round just as of yet. XSET, I think, wanting to make doubly sure that they don't have any mistakes on this clear due to the issues that due to the issues that popped up on the previous attempt here.
Mark missed Butters by a hair. If Butters literally was a millimeter to the left or right, depending on where the nitro landed, he's dead. Like that, wow. That is so much damage dealt to him. And the other issue is that in order for Butters to actually complete his job, they more than likely need to get him in down low. I mean, he is Buck and he has the skeleton key. So no longer more than likely having influence like they once thought they were going to. They will get a read on Iconic down low with the hologram, but the round's now starting to sputter out. We're already into the last minute, and XSET have not been able to find a pick.
Disrupt, they're going to be able to find their first pick as we enter that first minute that Stokes was just talking about there. J9O successfully knocking out Butters and finishing him off from the earlier damage that was suffered. Creators, with his own response, though, keeps us even and honest at a 4v4. Neither team fielding a massive advantage inside of the round as of yet, but ultimately the time serves to give Disrupt an advantage here. It's got to be an all-in execute from XSET, and they do not have the best time or info in order to make this happen. Still with players having positioning downstairs. Frag Grenade goes in, I believe, does deal with the denial that was positioned on the far master wall, but they don't even really have time to open it. We'll see if they were able to sneak off some form of hard breach, but no, they're focused on the plant, which they're actually sneaking off right now. Drip is able to get it until it's denied right there by J9O. Shuttle as well with another cutoff leaves only Thomas alive, but he's on a flank and no one expects it. But without any time, he can't make it work. Disrupt close out on the map. 7-3, I believe, is our final score.
Oh, man, that is such a rough start to the Super Week for XSET, but you have to give it to Disrupt here. The team play is really what shone through for these guys up against XSET. We were talking about throughout this entire match. XSET able to find the clutches, able to do a lot of things on the individualist scale, but when it came to the team play, Disrupt were just lights out, especially Mark with the amount of influence he had with that pulse, and J9 holding things down as always.
Great play overall across the team from Disrupt. We talked about how some individuals were needed to step up today in order to make that differential impact that would push them over the edge, but it honestly wasn't that made the difference inside of the matchup.